So in this question here, I've got to show 4 cosine squared x plus 3 sine squared x minus 4 over cosine squared x equals minus tangent squared x. So with cosine squared x and sine squared x here, this is looking like we're going to use a trig identity, which is cosine squared x plus sine squared x equals 1. So that's a trig identity we can use there. So let's just put this here, trig identities. Now we've got 3 ways I can see here that we could go. So we could substitute in for cosine squared x, we could substitute in for sine squared x, or we could factor out with these here. So first of all, I'm going to show these as cosine squared x and sine squared x on its own. So if I've got cosine squared x on its own, that's going to be 1 minus sine squared x, taking the sine squared x on this side. And if I want to leave the sine squared x on its own, I will get something very similar, which is 1 minus cosine squared x. So there's 3 trig identities that I can use for some methods here. So let's substitute in for cosine squared x. So cosine squared x is 1 minus sine squared x. So let's substitute in for that. So now I'll have 4 times 1 minus sine squared x plus 3 sine squared x minus 4, and divide that by cosine squared of x. And hopefully we're going to get this at the end. Now this here, minus tangent squared x, that is just the same as minus sine squared x over cosine squared x. So what we want to try and do is to not touch the cosine squared x in our denominator and end up with negative sine squared x in our numerator. Okay, so now I've got this 4 1 minus sine squared x substituting for cosine squared x using this trig identity. So that's the one we're using first. Okay, now let's factor this one out. Let's multiply this out. So 4 times 1 minus sine squared x will give us 4 minus 4 sine squared x plus 3 sine squared x minus 4 over cosine squared x. Okay, now 4 and minus 4, they will cancel. I've got minus 4 sine squared x and plus 3 sine squared x. So that's going to give me minus 4 plus 3 is going to give me minus 1. So that's going to give me minus sine squared x. So that is the desired result that we wanted from this. So that one there shows equivalent to what we want here. So that's one way we could do. So let's take this off the board and let's try with this substitution. Okay, now let's try with this one. So now sine squared x, I'm going to substitute for this one. So now I've got 4 cosine squared x plus 3 sine squared x, which is 1 minus cosine squared x. So 1 minus cosine squared x minus 4 over cosine squared x. So as before, I've got cosine squared x in my denominator. I want to have that untouched if possible. So let's multiply out the brackets. So I've got 4 cosine squared x plus 3 times 1 is 3, and then minus cosine squared x times 3. So minus 3 cosine squared x, that's over cosine squared x. Okay, let's simplify this off. 4 cosine squared x minus 3 cosine squared x is just going to leave me with cosine squared x. And then plus 3 minus 4, that's going to give me minus 1. And divide that by cosine squared of x. Okay, now what I can do here, I can split this fraction. So cosine squared x over cosine squared x, and then minus 1 over cosine squared x. So that's splitting my fraction. Now this obviously is just going to be 1. So that's going to be 1. And here I've got 1 over cosine squared x. So that is secant squared x. So I've got 1 minus secant squared x. Okay, now here we can use another trig identity involving tangent squared x. So tangent squared x equals plus 1 equals secant squared of x. So that's another trig identity. Now here we've got 1 minus secant squared x. So let's get this 1 with the secant squared x and get the tangent squared x on the other side. So if I bring this secant squared x on this side, I'll have 1 minus secant squared x, and move the tangent squared x onto this side, I'll have minus tangent squared x. So there we go, I've got 1 minus secant squared x, that equals minus tangent squared x, and that is equivalent to that. So that's the second way I can go. So let's try a third way where we just factor out our numerator. Okay, so I've got 4 cosine squared x and I've got a minus 4. So let's write that as 4 cosine squared x minus 1. So that would take care of that. And I still need to add 3 sine squared x. And all divided by cosine squared. Okay, so I've got cosine squared x minus 1. Here I've got 1 minus cosine squared x. So why don't I put a minus sign on my minus 4, and that way then I can flip these round the other way. So then I would have minus 4 and then have 1 minus cosine squared x. So that way then I'd have this identity inside here. So 4 times 1 minus cosine squared x plus 3 sine squared x over cosine squared x. Okay, now what can I do here? Well, 1 minus cosine squared x, that's the same as sine squared x. So now I've got minus 4 sine squared x plus 3 sine squared x over cosine squared x. Okay, well, minus 4 sine squared x plus 3 sine squared x is minus sine squared x, and that's divided by cosine squared x, and then that is the same as that. So there's 3 ways we can show that that and that are equivalent. Okay, that's a good place to end.